In this lesson, we will be learning one-step inequalities by multiplication and division. So our inverse operations work the same as when we were solving equations. So our inverse operations are the operations that undo each other. They undo each other. And so our inverse operations are addition and subtraction, which you would see in video 8.2. And then in this lesson is multiplication and division. So multiplication and division undo each other as well. There's one other thing that's different from when we did this in equations, and I'm going to write that down now. The only difference when we have inequalities is when you multiply or divide by a negative, then you have to flip the symbol. Okay? And I'm going to emphasize here the word by. When we are multiplying or dividing by a negative, meaning the inverse operation, when the inverse operation is negative. And we'll talk about that in a second. So in this first question, we have solve and graph 5x less than 35. So we see multiplication, 5x is multiplication. So in order to undo multiplication, we must divide both sides by 5. And our 5's cancel. 5 divided by 5 is 1, or 1x, less than 7. So x is less than 7. Okay? And I'm going to draw a number line. My rule of thumb is to do 5 hash marks, 5 values, with the one we're talking about, 7, right in the middle. So 7, 8, 9, 6, and 5. Now, since it's x is less than 7, since we're not including the 7, we would go open circle on 7, and less than goes to the left. Okay? Now, in our second question, it's very similar. On this question, we have negative 5x less than 40. So we're going to follow the same process. Negative 5x, since we have negative 5, we are going to divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5. So I'm going to write that down. What I said out loud was to divide by negative 5, which is what our rule was when we are dividing by a negative. Okay, so our inverse operation is now a negative. So here's what happens. We are negative 5 and negative 5. They cancel each other out, leaving us with x. Our 40 divided by negative 5, what we have a positive divided by a negative, which is a negative, and 40 divided by 5, which is 8, so negative 8. And then since we divided by a negative, we must flip our symbol from less than to greater than. So our final answer is x has to be greater than negative 8. And then we graph this. We have our number line. We have negative 8. Now over here, we're going closer and closer to 0. So negative 7 and negative 6, and then negative 9 and negative 10. Since it's a greater than, strictly greater than, we go open circle on 8, going to the right. And one more I would like to do is example 6. Now we have 9x. Now the 9x is on that right-hand side. That's okay. Right-hand side, that's okay. We're going to start off by dividing by 9, dividing by 9. Now notice I divided by a positive 9, so we are not flipping the sign. It's okay that this one is negative. So we have negative 81 divided by 9, which is negative 9. We keep our symbol, because we didn't divide by a negative, and then we're left with x. Now, whenever I'm graphing, so this is absolutely correct. You could circle this answer here. But whenever I know I have to graph or make an understanding of my inequality, I always like to flip the whole thing. If I flip the whole thing, it makes the variable comes first, which is easier for our brains to understand. So I'm going to flip the whole thing so that the x is over here, the -9 is over here, and the symbol flips. So -9 is less than x is the same as x is greater than -9. And now that is easier for our brains to understand when graphing. We have -9 right in the middle, -8, -7, -10, and -11. We're going to go open circle. So sorry, all these were open circle that I chose to do. But open circle on -9, and they must be bigger numbers, so it goes to the right. And notice these are bigger numbers. They are smaller. They look smaller because they're the 8, 7, but they're bigger because in the negatives, our smaller negative numbers are bigger. Okay. Now, I wanted to do one over here. We have number 8 because this is dividing on both sides. So we see x divided by -4. So to undo division, we must multiply both sides by -4. And what that does is these -4s cancel because one's in the numerator and one's in the denominator. They cancel each other out, leaving x. And since I multiplied by a negative, our sign must flip. And then 12 times -4 is -48. Okay, I'm going to do a super fast graph so I don't run out of time on my video. But we have -48 in the middle, -47, -46, -49, and -50. We have greater than or equal to, so filled in circle on 48, -48, going to the right.